Hey guys, TCGLover here. I thought I would start getting into vlogs in a way. I kind of like the way that it allows me to discuss how I feel about certain topics in Yu-Gi-Oh! Without it being like as if I'm complaining too much. I mean, okay, the card D one was a little bit because I kind of really dislike the way that people are saying, oh my god, it's so broke. And I was just thinking, using my knowledge, how it's not really the format for the card, you know? So, of course, when I'm doing these, I'd rather try not to sound too British, although I am proud of my nationality, but at the same time it seems like some people on my videos insist on complaining. So, saying, oh, you have a faggy, if that's even a word, a faggy British voice, which doesn't really make any sense because my accent isn't actually as bad as some people's. You know, you get this kind of like the Americans. Even you probably are American. You probably look at the British and you think we still wear top hats and we still have to complain about the weather all the time, and we all talk like this. Oh, hello. You know, like some kind of posh twat, because we don't talk really like that. We have a little bit of an accent because it's kind of the way they've been raised, and it's kind of, but the point is that most of the time we don't actually talk like that. We actually talk like slang, and really, we talk a lot worse than you do actually. So you should really be proud of yourselves, even though the accent that you have can sometimes be mistranslated as kind of slang, uneducated or something. At the same time, it's actually pretty good. I actually like the accent. I've spoken to some Americans because they come over here quite often, and I honestly don't really mind it. I think it's okay. You know, it's easier to understand than the slang of chavs that we have in this country. But anyway, enough about my accent. My topic today is to talk about Dragons Collide. The fact is that whoops. The fact is that in YCS Philadelphia, the top 2 was a Dragon Mirror, and the top 4 was 2 Dino Rabbits included, which both got knocked out. So, what does this mean? Okay, if you think about it, Dino Rabbits is a deck that's been around for about 6 to 8 months now. About 6 months, just over 6 months. And it's shown its worth pretty well on YCSs. I mean, it constantly gets like 8 spots in the top 16. It constantly gets 4 spots in the top 8, like 5 spots in the top 8. Constantly. Like, every time there's a YCS, it's the same thing, right? And Dino Rabbits have won a couple of times, you know, once in America and about 2 times over in the UK. Not UK, in Europe. But now with the Dragons Collide, it's really starting to pick up. I think also it's kind of demonstrates how there's a power in numbers, because a lot of people have started to pick up the deck. A lot of pro players with tour guides, with the funds, and kind of the pro experience to take on pilot the deck and play it to its best potential. So really, it's kind of, in this point, it's in numbers, because there's a lot of ways you can deal with it. I mean, Billy Break, right, he made an article on Auto Reality Games, and he was saying how you can use Soul Taker on Light Pulsar Dragon, and it misses the timing because the opponent has to gain 1,000 life points for them to, you know, they can't avoid it. So Light Pulsar's second effect, which special summons Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, misses the timing, so you can basically smash and ground it without worrying about any drawbacks, except for the fact that, you know, an extra 1,000 makes Solemn Warning 1,000 points less when they pay for it. So that's quite good. And there's obviously things like transmigration and stuff like that, you know, because they remove their Eclipse Wyvern for BLS, and then they get back stuff, and then they do stuff. So it's like a constant stream of beaters that just don't give up. They just constantly special summon themselves and remove themselves and come back with Eclipse Wyvern and then the Avarice, and then they just summon more. It's a really stupid deck, and I think at this point it's actually really, you know, in the hands of the best players, it's more potent, like viable and more consistent. In some sense it is more consistent than Dino Rabbits. I mean, Dino Rabbits, right, is complete control, right? If you open with the nuts, then no deck can beat you. That's right. But if you watch the YCS feature matches, they just open with Cabasaurs and Sabersaurus all over the place, and they might open with Rabbit. But then if you open with Rabbit and 2 Cabasaurs, and you have to go into Sabersaurus, and you're stuck with 2 dead cards. I mean, I just don't like that. I don't like opening up with crappy cards, like crappy normal monsters in your hand that you can only just summon and attack with. But with Chaos Dragons, it's really difficult to get a bad hand. You can obviously open up with all spells and all traps, just like any other deck. But, you know, as long as you've got some way to mill cards, like Card Trooper, that card is never dead. You know, you just, obviously, unless you're top decking, it can be kind of bad. But at the beginning, you mill free, even if they Veiler you, it doesn't matter, because you've done the job now, you've milled. And then they destroy you, draw a card. And drawing cards, obviously, is great. And, you know, if you Lila, they force to warning it. I mean, every card in the deck has its kind of little secondary purpose. I mean, Light Pulsar, you know, it can be used to get over Lagia. And it lets you remove Eclipse Wyvern. So it's catered to defeat the decks of this meta. It's so... you know, if Royal Oppression was still around, then the deck would be absolutely rubbish. But, you know, this is just able to constantly make cards. I mean, Torrentials and Warnings and all these things can stop it. But the fact is, you have to remove a Light and a Dark for Light Pulsar before it's even summoned. So Warning doesn't even come into it. And obviously, the whole point of summoning Light Pulsar is just to remove your stuff. I mean, obviously, having a 25 beater on the field is great. But really, removing Eclipse means that you can do more stuff because you get to add more cards into your hand anyway. So you're not losing any advantage. And they just lost a card in their field, and they just paid 2,000 points. And obviously, the last part of the card, which actually really showed its worth on the YCS this weekend, was Dark-Armed Dragon. I mean, it was kind of thrown out of the radar since not many decks would be able to use it. I mean, Inzektors can use it, but once they've gone past the 3 Darks point in the deck in the graveyard. It's really difficult to get them away from the graveyard because the whole deck basically focuses on toolboxing Hornet, putting stuff back on the field and back, and then obviously more cards fill up because you have 2 Darks in your grave, 3 Darks in your grave, and you're thinking, oh god, I've got 2 Inzektors on my field now. You know, what do I do? I mean, if you haven't got Dad in your hand, and if you draw, most of the time you won't have the grave set up. But with Dragon's Collide, you can just... I'm going to call it Dragon's Collide because of the structure deck. You know, you can just Future Fusion 3 Darks, and then Eclipse Wyvern, and then you can remove some other stuff. So the deck basically sets up Dark-Armed Dragon so well, and the whole reason why Dark-Armed Dragon stopped being played was because it was inconsistent when it came to drawing it, and then you didn't have the summoning condition set up, so you couldn't drop it. You'd be stuck with this card in your hand, and it's a level 7, so you can't even trade it in if you wanted to. So Future Fusion combined with broke, 3,000 beaters like BLS means the deck is absolutely so catered to beating the decks of this meta because all of them are control. I mean, of course, if you don't open with Veilers, and you can still get wind-up loot, but at the same time, Light Pulsar lets you special summon it from the graveyard by discarding 2 cards in your hand, essentially. So yeah, I mean, there is so many reasons as to why the deck is good, and it's no surprise. I mean, the reason people are probably asking, why didn't the deck come around before? Well, it's because so many people have jumped on it now. That's it. I mean, there was probably, I don't remember how many people were at this YCS, but I think there was like 1,000 something, because it was kind of easy to get to. And I think there was at least about 400 Dragon players, and there's probably about another 500 Rabbit players, but Rabbits lose to Dragons quite often, unless they side into Electric Virus. But that's it, really. So yeah, that's my discussion for the deck. I'm pretty sure you agree with me that they're pretty good right now. I mean, I wouldn't think they're broken. I mean, the deck is really good, but as long as you've set yourself up to beat them, as long as you've got the side for them, they're not too difficult. I just think if your deck is nowhere near able to beat them, then you're going to lose no matter what. But that's that. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That's my discussion. I think I'll do more of these face-to-face videos because I actually quite like them. So thanks for watching. TCGLover out.